The alarm bells rang through the space station near Jupiter. Commander Jake Harrison was drinking his morning coffee when the signals started flashing red on every screen. He had been patrolling this sector for 3 years, and nothing exciting ever happened here. Today was different. The radio crackled with a voice he had never heard before. It spoke perfect English, but there was something wrong about it. The words came out too smooth, like a computer trying to sound human. Attention. Primitive species of the third planet. This is the Galactic Council. You have been selected for integration into our empire. You will comply with our demands within 30 of your solar rotations. Jake nearly dropped his coffee cup. He stared at the communication panel, waiting for someone to tell him this was a drill. The voice continued speaking, and each word made his blood run colder. You will provide 10% of your population as workers for our mining operations. You will surrender 50% of your planetary resources to council ships. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your government will accept council authority. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your world. The transmission ended with coordinates showing a massive fleet positioned just beyond Pluto. Jake's hands shook as he activated the emergency beacon. Every military base on Earth needed to hear this message. The human race had just received its first contact with aliens, and it was a death sentence. Back on Earth, Captain Lisa Morgan was reviewing supply reports when her secure phone rang. The voice on the other end belonged to General Patricia Kim, and she sounded like she had seen a ghost. Lisa, drop everything and get to the Pentagon. We have a situation that changes everything. Alien contact. They want to enslave us. Lisa had trained for many things during her 20 years in the military. She had fought in 3 wars and survived situations that should have killed her. But nothing had prepared her for walking into a room full of the most powerful people on Earth, all staring at screens showing alien ships. President William Carter looked like he had aged 10 years in the past hour. Admiral Kevin Brooks sat at the conference table with his head in his hands. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of computers analyzing the alien message. How many ships? Lisa asked. Our best count is over 3,000, Admiral Brooks replied. Each one is bigger than our largest aircraft carrier. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Our weapons would barely scratch their hulls. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Davis entered the room carrying a thick folder. He had been Earth's top expert on theoretical alien contact, though nobody had expected to need his expertise so soon. His face was pale as he opened the folder. I've been analyzing their communication patterns and language structure, Ryan said. This isn't their first contact with a primitive species. They've done this before many times. The way they speak, the demands they make, it's all standardized. We're just another planet to them. President Carter stood up slowly. He had led the nation through economic crises and natural disasters, but this was different. This threatened the existence of every human being alive. What are our options? The president asked. Admiral Brooks pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's military assets. The numbers looked pitiful compared to the alien fleet. Realistically, we have 3 choices. We can surrender and hope they keep their word about letting most of us live. We can try to negotiate for better terms, or we can fight. Fighting would be suicide, General Kim said. Their technology is too advanced. We'd be throwing away millions of lives for nothing. Lisa studied the alien fleet data. Something bothered her about their positioning and formation. These ships were arranged like they expected no resistance at all. They sat in open space, not even bothering to protect their flanks or rear. They're not expecting a fight, she said quietly. Of course not, Admiral Brooks replied. Why would they? We're primitives to them. No, I mean, they're really not expecting any fight at all. Look at their formation. Those ships are positioned for intimidation, not battle. They think we'll surrender without firing a shot. Ryan nodded slowly. That matches what I found in their communication patterns. Every phrase they used suggests they expect immediate compliance. They've probably never encountered a species that fought back. President Carter walked to the window overlooking Washington. D.C. millions of people went about their daily lives, unaware that their world had just changed forever. Children played in parks. Adults hurried to work. None of them knew that alien ships were deciding their fate. What happens to the species that don't surrender? He asked. Ryan's voice was barely a whisper. Based on their language patterns and the efficiency of their demands, I don't think any species has ever refused them. But the way they talk about integration and resource allocation suggests they've done this to entire civilizations. We might be looking at systematic genocide on a galactic scale. The room fell silent. The weight of that possibility settled over everyone like a heavy blanket. These aliens hadn't just threatened Earth. They had potentially murdered entire species across the galaxy. Lisa felt something stirring in her chest. It wasn't fear. It was anger. She had spent her entire career protecting people from bullies and tyrants. Now the biggest bully in the galaxy had shown up at Earth's door. So we're the first species they've encountered that might actually fight back, she said. Fighting would be suicide, General Kim repeated. Maybe, President Carter sighed, turning back to face the room. But there's something these aliens don't understand about humans. We've been fighting impossible odds for our entire history. We've never been good at giving up. Admiral Brooks activated the Global Communication Network. Within minutes, every world leader would know about the alien ultimatum. Military bases across the planet would begin emergency preparations. The civilian population would need to be informed carefully to prevent panic. But as the meeting broke up and everyone rushed to their emergency stations, one thought echoed through the minds of every person in that room. The aliens had made mistake. They had given humanity 30 days to prepare. 30 days for the most stubborn, aggressive, and resourceful species on Earth to figure out how to fight back. The Galactic Council had demanded tribute from Earth. They were about to learn that humans had a very different response to bullies than any species they had encountered before. The world changed overnight. Every television channel, radio station, and internet feed carried the same message. President Carter's voice was calm but firm as he told 8 billion people that Earth was no longer alone in the universe. And their new neighbors wanted to destroy them. Dr. Amanda Price was in her laboratory when the announcement came. She had spent 15 years studying biology, always wondering if life existed beyond Earth. Now she knew the answer, and she wished she didn't. The alien samples that had been collected over the decades from crashed objects were no longer curiosities. They were the key to humanity's survival. Her phone rang before the president finished speaking. The voice belonged to Dr. Nathan Wells, the smartest physicist she knew. Amanda, grab everything from your lab and meet me at the underground facility in Nevada. We have work to do. What kind of work? The kind that might save our species. Within 6 hours, every major scientist on Earth received similar calls. The government was activating programs that had existed only in theory. Secret facilities that had studied unexplained phenomena for decades suddenly became the most important places on the planet. General Patricia Kim had not slept since the alien message arrived. Her job was to coordinate the largest military preparation in human history. Every soldier was recalled from leave. Every pilot was ordered to active duty. Every ship and plane was being modified for combat, but numbers told a harsh story. Earth had maybe 10,000 military aircraft that could reach space. The aliens had 3,000 ships, each one the size of a city. Human weapons were designed to fight other humans, not advanced alien technology. The answer came from an unexpected source. Colonel Frank Turner had been retired for 5 years, spending his time fishing and reading history books. When the call came asking him to return to duty, he was studying accounts of ancient battles where small armies defeated much larger ones. "We can't fight them ship to ship," he told General Kim during their first meeting. "We need to fight smart, use tactics they won't expect." "What tactics work against technology we don't understand?" Frank smiled grimly. "The same ones that worked against the British in 1776, the same ones that worked in Vietnam, the same ones that have worked every time a small force faced impossible odds. We make them fight our kind of war, not theirs." Meanwhile, in factories around the world, something remarkable was happening. Tony Rodriguez had managed a car factory in Detroit for 20 years. When the government asked him to convert his production, lying to make weapon components, he didn't hesitate. Within days, his workers were producing parts for spacecraft engines instead of automobiles. The same scene played out everywhere. Teachers like Michelle Adams organized evacuation plans for children. Farmers shared their knowledge of hidden underground facilities. Retired engineers came out of retirement to design new weapons. The entire human race was mobilizing for war. Dr. Amanda Price made the first breakthrough on day 5. The alien technology fragments showed a weakness that nobody expected. The aliens had focused so heavily on energy-based weapons and defenses that they had forgotten about simple kinetic attacks. Bullets and missiles might actually work better than laser weapons. "They're not invincible," she told the Emergency Science Council. "They're just different. Their shields stop energy, but they might not stop a chunk of metal moving fast enough." Double quotes. Dr. Nathan Wells nodded. "I've been analyzing their ship designs from the long-range scans. They're built for fighting other energy weapon civilizations. They might not be ready for projectile weapons." This news changed everything. Human weapons suddenly became useful again. But they needed to be delivered in ways the aliens wouldn't expect. Captain Jake Harrison was testing the first modified fighter when the alien fleet made its next move. The ships moved closer to Earth, stopping near Mars. They began broadcasting messages to individual countries, trying to turn humans against each other. The messages promised that nations which surrendered first would be treated better. Countries that resisted would be made examples for others. It was psychological warfare, designed to break human unity before the fighting started. It had the opposite effect. President Carter received calls from every world leader within hours. The message was unanimous. No country would surrender. No nation would betray the others for better treatment. Humanity would stand together or fall together. Lisa Morgan watched the alien broadcasts with growing anger. These creatures thought humans were like every other species they had conquered. They expected fear to divide the people of Earth against each other. "They don't understand us at all," she told Admiral Brooks. "They think we're just another group of individuals who will save themselves when things get dangerous." "Aren't we?" Lisa shook her head. "Humans are tribal. When outsiders threaten the tribe, we forget our internal fights. These aliens just united our entire species against them." The proof came in ways both large and small. Countries that had been enemies for decades shared military technology. Soldiers from different nations trained together without conflict. Scientists who had competed for years worked side by side on the same projects. Ryan Davis documented the changes in his daily reports. The alien threat had accomplished something that no human leader had ever managed. It had made the entire species work together toward a single goal. By day 15, the first new human warships were ready for testing. They looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels. They were ugly angular machines built for one purpose: delivering human weapons to alien targets. The ships were loaded with every type of projectile weapon humans could build. Missiles, railguns, mass drivers, and even simple cannons. If Dr. Price was right about alien weaknesses, these crude weapons might be more effective than the most advanced energy systems. Ground-based defenses were being installed around every major city. Hidden weapon platforms were positioned throughout the solar system. Asteroid mining stations were converted into military bases. Earth was becoming a fortress. But the most important change was in the people themselves. The panic that the aliens expected never came. Instead, there was determination. Humans had faced extinction before and survived. They would do it again. Children as young as 10 volunteered to help in any way they could. Elderly people who had lived through previous wars shared their knowledge with younger generations. Everyone understood that this was bigger than any conflict in human history. On day 20, the alien fleet began moving again. They were coming closer to Earth, expecting to find a broken, frightened species ready to surrender. Instead, they found a united, angry, and surprisingly well-prepared enemy. The aliens had given humanity 30 days to submit. Instead, they had given them 30 days to prepare for war. It was a mistake they would soon regret. Day 30 arrived with clear skies over Earth. The alien fleet had moved to just beyond the moon, their massive ships blocking out stars in the night sky. Every human on the planet could see them without telescopes. 3,000 vessels of death waiting for humanity's surrender. Admiral Zorth commanded the lead ship of the Galactic Council fleet. He had conquered 47 worlds in his career. Each time had followed the same pattern. The ultimatum, 30 days of panic and internal fighting among the primitives, then tearful surrender messages begging for mercy. He activated the communication system at exactly the appointed time. The response should come from Earth's leaders. Within minutes, he expected the usual pleading, the desperate offers of extra tribute, the promises of complete obedience. Instead, he received a transmission from Admiral Kevin Brooks that made him pause. The human's voice was steady and cold. "This is Admiral Brooks of the Earth Defense Force. We have received your demands. Here is our answer." The transmission switched to another human voice. This one belonged to Jake Harrison, speaking from his fighter cockpit somewhere near Neptune. "You came to our home. You threatened our children. You demanded we kneel. We have one response to bullies, and it's the same response we've given for thousands of years. Come and take it." Admiral Zorth stared at his communication screen. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever responded with a challenge. He quickly checked his translation systems, thinking there must be an error, but the meaning was clear. These primitives were declaring war. "Impossible," he muttered to his bridge crew. "They must be malfunctioning. No species fights the Council." His second-in-command pulled up tactical displays of the human military assets. "Sir, they have perhaps 200 ships capable of space combat. We have 3,000. Their weapons are primitive projectile systems. This will be over in minutes." "Admiral," Zorth nodded. "Send the first wave to demonstrate our power. Destroy half their fleet. The survivors will surrender quickly enough." But the first surprise came before the battle even started. The human ships were not where the Council expected them to be. Long-range scans had shown them grouped near Earth in defensive formations. Now they were scattered throughout the solar system in small groups. Captain Jake Harrison led the first human attack near Neptune. His squadron of 12 fighters faced a Council patrol of 5 ships. On paper, it should have been suicide. The alien ships were faster, more powerful, and better armed. Jake's ships opened fire with simple missile systems. The Council ships activated their energy shields, confident that primitive weapons could not penetrate their defenses. They were right about energy weapons. They were wrong about missiles. The first alien ship died when 3 missiles punched through its shield and exploded inside its hull. The aliens had never encountered kinetic weapons designed to penetrate energy barriers. Their shields were useless against chunks of metal moving at tremendous speed. The second Council ship tried to retreat, but Jake's wingman Danny Roberts was already behind it. Danny's fighter was damaged and losing power, but he had enough left for one final attack. He aimed his ship directly at the alien vessel. "This is for every world you murdered," Danny transmitted as his fighter smashed into the alien ship at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from Mars. The remaining Council ships fled back to their main fleet, carrying news that should have been impossible. The primitives had weapons that worked. Admiral Zorth received the battle reports with growing confusion. His advanced ships were being destroyed by crude human technology. The energy signatures made no sense. These weapons should not be able to penetrate Council defenses. "Send more ships," he ordered. "The first patrol must have malfunctioned. No primitive species can threaten Council technology." The second wave encountered Captain Lisa Morgan's forces near Mars. She had positioned her ships among the asteroid belt, using the rocks as cover and ammunition. Her strategy was simple but effective. If human missiles could damage alien ships, then asteroids moving at missile speeds could destroy them. The Council ships entered the asteroid field expecting easy targets. Instead, they found human ships using magnetic accelerators to throw rocks at speeds that turned them into planet killers. The first alien vessel to die was struck by a chunk of iron the size of a building. But the real shock came when the Council tried their standard psychological warfare. They broadcast images of their previous conquests, showing the destruction of beautiful worlds and the deaths of billions. It was designed to break enemy morale and force immediate surrender. The tactic backfired completely. Instead of fear, it generated pure rage among the human forces. Every pilot, every gunner, every soldier who saw those images understood exactly what they were fighting against. These aliens were not just conquerors. They were genocidal monsters. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Davis coordinated the defense of Earth's orbital platforms. When he saw the alien broadcast, his calm military demeanor cracked for the first time. "All units, you just saw what these things do to civilizations that surrender. They're not here to rule us. They're here to erase us. Make them pay for every mile of space." The battle raged for 3 days. Human ships attacked in small groups, never staying in one place long enough for the aliens to coordinate effective responses. They used the solar system itself as a weapon, hiding behind planets and moons, using gravity wells to accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds. General Patricia Kim watched the battle reports from Earth's command center. The numbers were terrible. Humanity was losing 2 ships for every alien vessel destroyed, but something impossible was happening. The mighty Galactic Council fleet was actually retreating. Dr. Amanda Price had been right about alien weaknesses. Their technology was centuries ahead of human science, but it was specialized for fighting other energy weapon civilizations. They had no defense against the crude but effective kinetic weapons that humans preferred. More importantly, they had no experience fighting a species that refused to surrender. Every other civilization had given up when faced with superior numbers and technology. Humans kept fighting even when victory seemed impossible. On the 3rd day, Admiral Zorth made a decision that shocked his own crew. He ordered a full retreat to the edge of the solar system. The Council had lost nearly a third of their fleet to primitive weapons and suicidal tactics. As the alien ships pulled back, Jake Harrison's damaged fighter limped back to Earth. He had survived 3 days of impossible battles and lived to tell about it. His message to Earth's defenders was simple but powerful. They're not gods. They bleed. They die. and they can run away just like any other bully when someone fights back. The first battle was over. Humanity had lost millions of soldiers and most of their space fleet. But they had accomplished something that no species in galactic history had ever done. They had forced the Galactic Council to retreat. The aliens thought they were dealing with another primitive civilization. Instead, they had encountered something far more dangerous. They had found humans. 6 months after the aliens retreated from Earth, the galaxy received its first taste of what humans were really capable of. The Galactic Council expected the primitives to celebrate their victory and return to their quiet little planet. Instead, they got something far more terrifying. Dr. Amanda Price stood in the captured alien ship that had become her new laboratory. A battle had left several Council vessels damaged, but intact. Now she had access to technology that was thousands of years ahead of human science. But instead of being amazed by alien superiority, she was disappointed by their limitations. "They're not creative," she told Dr. Nathan Wells as they examined the ship's weapon systems. "Everything is designed to do exactly one thing. Their shields stop energy weapons, but nothing else. Their engines are fast, but fragile. They never planned for anyone to fight back differently than they do." Nathan nodded while downloading Alien. "Star charts. Look at this. They have maps of over 3,000 star systems. But every single battle plan in their computers is identical. Same formation, same tactics, same demands. They've been using the same strategy for centuries." The real breakthrough came when they accessed the ship's historical records. The files contained detailed accounts of every world the Council had conquered. The pattern was always the same: ultimatum, demonstration of power, surrender, then systematic destruction of the conquered species. Culture and population dot, but buried in the data was something that made both scientists sick to their stomachs. The Council hadn't just conquered these worlds. They had completely wiped out entire civilizations. Billions of beings who had surrendered in hope of mercy had been murdered. Anyway, Amanda's hands shook as she read report after report. Beautiful species with rich cultures, reduced entries in an alien database. Worlds turned into empty mining operations. Children enslaved and worked to death in alien factories. "We need to show this to the president," she said quietly. President Carter's face was grim as he read the alien records. General Patricia Kim sat beside him, studying tactical data about Council military bases. Admiral Kevin Brooks reviewed files about alien supply lines and communication networks. "How many species?" the president asked. "Over 2,000 confirmed." "Extinctions," Amanda replied. "And these are just the records in one ship. The real number is probably much higher." The room fell silent. Every person present understood what they were looking at. The Galactic Council wasn't just an empire. It was a genocide machine that had been operating for thousands of years. Admiral Brooks spoke first. "We can't let this continue." "What are you suggesting?" President Carter asked. "I'm suggesting that Earth just became the galaxy's police force. We're the only species that has ever successfully fought these monsters. If we don't stop them, no one will." 3 weeks later, Captain Ryan Davis led the first human expedition beyond the solar system. His ship was built from a combination of human and captured alien technology. It was faster than anything Earth had ever built, but it was designed for war, not exploration. His target was a Council supply depot in the Alpha Centauri system. Intelligence suggested it was lightly defended, perfect for testing human capabilities in alien space. What they found there changed everything. The depot was massive, built into an asteroid that had been hollowed out over centuries. It contained supplies for the Council's expansion into new sectors of the galaxy, but it also contained something else: warehouses full of artifacts from destroyed civilizations. Danny Roberts, who had somehow survived ramming an alien ship and become a legend. Among human pilots, led the boarding team. What he found in those warehouses would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Captain, you need to see this," he transmitted back to Ryan's ship. The warehouses contained trophies, art from dead civilizations, musical instruments that would never play again, books written in languages that no living being could read. The Council had kept souvenirs from every species they had murdered, but the worst discovery was in the deepest section of the depot. Stasis chambers containing the last survivors of conquered worlds. Beings kept alive as living examples of species that no longer existed. Some had been in stasis for hundreds of years. Ryan's voice was cold as he transmitted back to Earth. "This isn't just war. It's systematic evil. These things need to be stopped, and we're the only ones who can do it." The attack on the depot was swift and merciless. Human boarding teams freed every survivor they could find. The alien defenders, used to facing terrified slaves, had no idea how to fight soldiers who were genuinely angry. But humans didn't just destroy the depot. They left something behind. A message broadcast on all Council frequencies. It was simple and direct. "This is humanity. We know what you've done. We know how many species you've murdered. We're coming for you. Every base, every ship, every Council world. You wanted to make us extinct. Instead, you made us your enemy. That was a mistake." The message was signed with coordinates of 3 more Council facilities that human intelligence had identified. It was a declaration of war against the entire Galactic Council Empire. General Patricia Kim coordinated the next phase from Earth's new command center. Human ships, built in factories that worked around the clock, spread out across nearby star systems. They weren't exploring or colonizing. They were hunting. The strategy was simple but effective. Hit Council supply lines. Free any survivors they found. Gather intelligence about alien operations. Always leave a message explaining exactly why humans were there. The galaxy's first real glimpse of human nature came at the Battle of Kepler Station. Colonel Michelle Adams led an assault on what intelligence said was a minor research facility. Instead, they found a prison camp containing survivors from 17 different species. The aliens had been conducting experiments on the prisoners, testing new ways to break the spirits of conquered peoples. Some of the beings in those cells had been tortured for decades. Michelle's response was swift and brutal. Every Council soldier in the facility was killed. Every scientist was captured for interrogation. Every prisoner was freed and given medical treatment. But more importantly, Michelle made sure the galaxy knew what had happened. She broadcast detailed records of the experiments, along with testimony from the survivors. Species across the galaxy learned that the Council's promises of merciful treatment were lies. The effect was immediate. Worlds that had been considering surrender to Council ultimatums instead began preparing for war. Species that had been isolated for centuries started reaching out to neighbors for mutual defense agreements. Admiral Tony Rodriguez, promoted after his heroics defending Earth, received a message that changed the entire nature of the conflict. It came from the survivors of the Altair system, whose world had been destroyed 50 years earlier. "We have ships hidden in deep space. We have weapons. We have been waiting for someone to show us that the Council could be fought. You have given us hope. How can we help?" Similar messages began arriving from across the galaxy. The Council had left survivors from many of their conquests, beings who had spent decades or centuries hiding and planning revenge. Now they had an ally capable of actually fighting back. President Carter addressed the newly formed Galactic Liberation Alliance in a speech that was broadcast to 1,000 worlds. His words were simple but powerful. "We did not ask to become your champions. We did not seek to become the galaxy's army. But we will not stand by while innocent beings are murdered by tyrants. We will fight until every council base is destroyed, until every enslaved species is free, until every survivor has justice. The council had made their worst possible mistake. They had turned humanity into the galaxy's liberators. And humans, once committed to a cause, never gave up. 5 years had passed since the first alien ships appeared over Earth. The galaxy was unrecognizable from what it had been under council rule. Admiral Tony Rodriguez walked through the corridors of New Geneva Station, the floating headquarters of the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Beings from hundreds of different worlds worked side by side, rebuilding what had been destroyed. The station itself was a symbol of what the galaxy had become. Built using technology from dozens of species, it represented cooperation instead of conquest. Human engineering provided the foundation, but alien science made it beautiful. Gardens from 100 worlds grew in the central hub, tended by beings whose ancestors had been enemies for millennia. Tony paused at an observation deck to watch the traffic around the station. Ships from every corner of the galaxy came and went freely. Trade vessels carried goods between worlds that had never been allowed to contact each other under council rule. Exploration ships headed out to discover new systems that might harbor life. But the most important ships were the smallest ones. Medical vessels carrying doctors to worlds still recovering from council occupation. Education ships bringing teachers to planets where entire generations had been denied learning. Construction ships helping rebuild cities that had been destroyed. By alien weapons. Captain Danny Roberts approached the Admiral with the day's intelligence reports. Danny had changed over the years. The young pilot who had rammed an alien ship in desperate fury had become a thoughtful leader who understood that winning the peace was harder than winning the war. The Centauri colonies are reporting another breakthrough, Danny said, handing Tony a datapad. Dr. Wells' team has successfully recreated the Altarian species. 50 individuals grown from genetic samples we recovered from council laboratories. Tony smiled. It was the kind of news that made all the fighting worthwhile. The Altarians had been wiped out 300 years ago, but now they had a chance to live again. Their culture was gone, their history lost, but they existed. It was a small miracle in a galaxy full of them. Any word from the council remnants? Tony asked. The last holdout surrendered yesterday. Admiral Brooks accepted their capitulation. Personally, that was the final council military unit in known space. Tony nodded. The war was truly over now. The mighty Galactic Council, which had ruled through fear for thousands of years, no longer existed. Their fleets were destroyed or captured. Their leaders were in prison or working to repair the damage they had caused. Their empire had become a memory, but the victory had come at a cost. Earth had lost millions of people during the war. Other alliance worlds had sacrificed even more. Entire star systems had been devastated in the fighting. The galaxy was free, but it was also wounded. Dr. Amanda Price was working in her laboratory on New Geneva Station when the communication came through. She had spent the last 5 years studying council technology and biology, trying to understand how such an advanced civilization had become so evil. Amanda, you need to see this. Dr. Nathan Wells called from across the lab. He was examining data from the deepest council archives, files that had been hidden even from most council members. The discovery was shocking. The council had not always been genocidal monsters. Their earliest records showed a peaceful civilization that had achieved faster-than-light travel and begun exploring the galaxy. They had made contact with other species and formed beneficial relationships. But somewhere along the way, they had encountered something that changed them. A species that fought back so viciously, so completely, that it traumatized the entire council civilization. They had become conquerors because they were terrified of being conquered themselves. The irony is incredible, Nathan said quietly. They became the very thing they feared most. And now they've been defeated by the one thing they never expected to encounter. What's that? A species that fights harder than they do, but doesn't become monsters in the process. Amanda understood. Humans had faced the same test that had broken the council. They had been threatened with extinction and forced to fight for survival. But instead of becoming conquerors themselves, they had chosen to become protectors. General Lisa Morgan stood before the Alliance Council, delivering her final military report. Representatives from over 300 species listened as she detailed the complete transformation of galactic civilization. Military resistance to Alliance authority has ended, she announced. The last Council holdouts have surrendered. Piracy in outer sectors has decreased by 90%. Trade between member worlds has increased by over 500%. Most importantly, no species has been enslaved or exterminated in over 2 years. President Carter, now serving as the first elected leader of the Alliance, rose to address the assembly. His hair had gone completely gray during the war years, but his voice was still strong. We gathered today not as conquerors celebrating victory, but as neighbors working toward a better future. The Alliance exists not to rule, but to protect. Not to command, but to serve. Every world that joins us does so freely. Every species that seeks our help receives it without conditions. The response from the assembly was immediate and unanimous. Beings from across the galaxy rose to their feet, creating a sound like thunder that echoed through the great hall. It was not the fearful obedience that the Council had demanded, but genuine respect earned through actions. Colonel Frank Turner, now retired for the second time, sat in his study on Earth reading reports from the frontier worlds. At his age, he should have been content to tend his garden and write his memoirs. Instead, he found himself planning defenses for colonies that had never known freedom. The reports were encouraging. New worlds were being discovered every month, and most contained life. Some harbored intelligent species that had hidden from the Council for centuries. Others had civilizations that were just beginning to develop technology. All of them were being welcomed into the galaxy as equals. The Alliance's first law was simple. Every species had the right to develop according to its own nature, free from interference or threat. A knock at his door interrupted Frank's reading. Captain Jake Harrison stood on the threshold, no longer the young pilot who had received the first alien ultimatum. He now commanded the Alliance's Exploration Division, leading missions to uncharted regions of space. Colonel, we need your expertise. Jake said, long-range sensors have detected something in the outer galaxy. Massive energy signatures, artificial in nature. It might be another empire like the Council. Frank smiled and reached for his military jacket. Well then, I suppose retirement will have to wait a little longer. As they prepared to investigate this new mystery, both men understood a fundamental truth about humanity. They would never stop being protectors. They would never stop standing between innocent beings and those who would harm them. It was not a burden but a choice, made freely by a species that had learned to fight without losing their souls. Galaxy had demanded tribute from Earth. What it received instead was something far more valuable. Hope for a future where strength served justice, where power protected the weak, and where the stars shone on free worlds rather than slave colonies. Universe was vast and full of unknown dangers. But it was also full of species learning to work together, to trust each other, and to build something better than what had come before. And watching over them all were the humans, the stubborn species that had taught the galaxy how to say no to tyrants.